The only other thing I was going to touch upon there was this is something that was doing the rounds, and I don't know how much validity there is in this, but there was rumors going around that came from John Williams himself, the composer for the Indiana Jones movies, that they are doing more reshoots on Indy 5. They're having to do a whole new ending. Now, this is what he said at a concert recently where he was a guest conductor. And yeah, he kind of let it slip that he's going to be helping them out because they are going to be doing another reshoot on Indy 5 to do a new ending in a few weeks. And I don't know, man. Like, I've heard rumors of test screenings being absolutely disastrous. The premise behind this movie sounds awful in the extreme, and if the rumors are true, God help it. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. It sounds awful. But yeah, that's the rumors doing the rounds at the moment. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about this at all. It was on Twitter for a fair bit.
I saw John Williams' little speech. Oh, sorry, after you asked.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I saw the little speech, and Indy 5's dead. The whole thing's dead. There's just the whole premise. Look, you attach Phoebe Waller-Bridge to anything, you fucking killed your product. You've just killed your product right there and then. If you're a man, then you're just like, there's no point in me even watching this. None whatsoever. If the rumors of time travel and Indy being wiped from existence and her taking over, and the whole of it just sounds dreadful. And I don't want to watch an 80-year-old Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade. This is a man at the peak of his career, peak of his physicality. And that's why that trilogy was so wonderful. 14 years ago, we were talking about Harrison Ford's too old to bring Indiana Jones back with the Crystal Skull. 14 years ago. And we were correct. The film was dreadful. It was appalling. Had none of the charm. The special effects were dog shit. And it was like, no, this is a young man's game. And as much as, you know, you might love Harrison Ford or Indiana Jones, and I do, because I think the first trilogy is one of the greatest trilogies of all time. You can't have then 14 years later an 8-year-old coming out going, let's do it, but this time it's feminism. And you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge. No.
John Williams was actually saying in that speech he gave. John Williams said, you know, I'm getting on a bit now. Harrison's a much younger man than I am, says the 91-year-old. He's 78. But I thought, you know, if Harrison's got one more in him, then I should have one more in me as well. But if a really, like, ancient man is saying that, well, okay, Harrison's pretty old, but, you know, he's not quite as old as me, he's probably too old to play Indiana Jones still. 78 is way too old. I mean, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I didn't think the problem with that necessarily was his age. I think you could have done that in the sense of if it were a proper passing the torch film, and they had like elements of that in there because you had Shia LaBeouf doing some of the running and the jumping and the fighting.
Yeah.
We just don't do passing the torch films well anymore because the person you're passing the torch to is invariably an ungrateful little shit, frankly. And that's the kind of thing, if you're going to do another Indiana Jones with a near 80-year-old Harrison Ford, you need somebody younger than him to whom he is passing the torch. But who's that? Is that going to be Phoebe Waller-Bridge? I don't want to see that particularly.
I think, I don't know why. I don't know why she became a thing as an actress. Like, I can get that she's got a certain talent for writing. If you really like female-led comedy, then, you know, fantastic. I'm sure you can have a ball with her stuff. It's not to my taste, but I can see why she's successful at it. As an actress, I don't understand how she can possibly headline any kind of TV show or new franchise as this, like, whip-cracking adventurer that's going to, like, be the equal of Indiana Jones. Like, it doesn't ring true. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you remember Solo?
She's not that kind of actress.
Remember Solo? Lead her character.
She was very good as Lando's sex robot. What are you talking
about?
Robot
rights.
Running robot rights. Oh, move out of the way, you.
I still laugh at the bit where he tries to pull her corpse along the ground and like her legs come off.
What were I thinking?
But then she was put into the Millennium Falcon to forever be there.
Yeah.
That was such a stain. It's like, put the fuck away.
She was brought in to go over the script for the last Bond movie and make sure that it was woman friendly and track women correctly. So she's been brought in as a troubleshooter in Hollywood to make sure that the scripts which are being produced aren't masculine, and make sure they tick all the right boxes for feminist agendas. So she's more than just some god awful actress that looks like a anemic horse. She's got this throne with her, which looks like a fucking
brutal.
She looks like a horse that's just ready to be put down. You know, it's just like it's got nothing. It's got no iron in its system. You know, it's got a big mole just wedged onto the side of the head. It's just like, it's knackered. Just put it down. Take her out back of the head.
Glue bottle.
So she's got more of a throw than just being in front of a camera. It's what she does behind the camera that ruins a lot. Apparently, she's having influence on the script for Indy as well. So,
well, I'd heard that her character, and this is again just rumors, but like that she's basically going around like correcting all of his like outdated attitudes. So when he's like, "Oh, there's Indians over there," she'd be like, "Well, actually, they should be called Indigenous people," and just little things like that, just bringing in all the 21st century, you know, identity politics stuff into this classic adventure franchise, and it just sounds like the absolute death of fun. I don't know how a character like that is ever supposed to work, or why anyone would ever like it. It's like they've taken the basic tenets of the indie movies, the things that made them so enjoyable, and reversed them in a character like that.
It doesn't work within sort of the time span the shows are set in. Indiana Jones is the hero of that sort of 40s, 50s mold. You know, he is the swashbuckling, Nazi-punching hero. As soon as you get him toward 60s, 70s, he would be on the opposing side to the cultural zeitgeist of the time his films are now set in. He has no option but to be an incredibly grumpy and reactionary old man, because he would be looking around at 60s student culture, for one thing, which has birthed so many of the modern 21st century faux pas, and he would be hating that kind of thing. And so he's going to be a man out of time in both senses. He's a man out of time in the sense that he's too old to play the role. He's a man out of time in the sense that the era his character is set in is the one that his character is least suited to. He has to be a miserable, cynical old man, and he has to be shown up by the new, younger upstarts. And it's very hard to see how you can be faithful to the era the show set in without turning him into the very thing that we don't want him to turn into.
But the thing is, consider as well that the audience that they're supposedly appealing to here, you know, they obviously want to, with this, pass the torch on to a younger character. I don't know what age Phoebe Waller-Bridge is. I'm assuming she's in her 30s still. Someone who could carry on the franchise for a while anyway, that's going to appeal to modern audiences. She's female, she's, you know, she ticks a lot of the boxes. I think she's implied to be a lesbian as well in this, because of course she is.
Yeah.
But young people like kids, I guess, now that they're going to try and appeal to and launch this new character, they're not going to care about Indiana Jones. They're too fucking young to appreciate that. Like the audience of these movies is our age and older. You know, it's people who kind of grew up with the original trilogy and like appreciated them from their childhoods. Those are not the kind of people that are going to enjoy a character like this. They're going to hate it because she's supplanting Indy, and she's basically just there to mock and belittle him and make him look like an antiquated relic of a different time. So it's like they put themselves into an impossible situation where the audience that they want to attract isn't going to be interested in the first place, and the only audience that they do have are going to be alienated by what they're trying to do with this new film. It's a lose-lose situation for them.
Do they care? I mean,
you'd assume they would.
Well, you'd assume if they were regular, normal, functioning human beings, they would. But we've seen the most ridiculous decisions over at Marvel. We've seen the most ridiculous decisions over at Disney with Star Wars. We've seen the most ridiculous decisions with DC. These people are clearly out of touch. I likened it on one of my streams to, they're trying to force feed you your vegetables because they think, You know, you're the little child because that's where they see you. And they're trying to force feed you vegetables. You've got to eat your vegetables. Come on, force it down. But they're not. We're grown adults and they're trying to put shit in us mouths. And they make these ridiculous decisions which aren't made for entertainment purposes, because entertainment now apparently is a privilege. So we're not allowed to have entertainment. We've got to see the plight of the Inuit Eskimos up in Greenland as they try and find a fish. We've got to, you know, find out about the oil spills. They just want to push every sort of agenda at us. And when it comes to something like Indiana Jones, they're going to look at the male aspect of him, then they're going to look at the toxicity aspect of him, and they're going to try and deconstruct that. She'll take the piss out of him. He'll be an absolute buffoon. He'll be tripping up, falling over, and all this kind of stuff. And then we'll see flashbacks to when he was a toxic man, and it's going to destroy. It's just going to destroy the legacy of the character. This film is a terrible idea from the outset. The people involved, I can't see any good faith anywhere in this. Reshoots, you can do all you want to change it. It's still going to be a mitigated disaster. If you want to reboot Indiana Jones, go ahead. I think that would still fail anyway, because the whole aspect of Indiana Jones was Harrison Ford. He embodies that character. And we're living in a culture where people just think you can just immediately transplant somebody and it'll have the same effect as it would before, as it did previously. That's not the case. It's never going to be the case. It's not just an investment in the character. It's also an investment in the person who's playing the character. There will never, ever be anyone who could ever play Columbo, for instance, other than Peter Falk. You could put as many people into that role and try and try and try. They will never, ever be Peter Falk. There will never be that true embodiment of Columbo. And it's the case, you know, you pick another franchise and another franchise. You know, Han Solo was a perfect example. Again, that is Harrison Ford. It's not, I can't even remember the actor's name.
Aaron Ehrenreich.
Aaron Peterson.
Yeah, older.
Aaron Smith. You know, some vanilla fucking white bland piece of bread that had nothing, not a single solitary characteristic which married up to the Han Solo that we had seen on the screen before. Hollywood are going to continue to throw this at us until somebody at the company or some shareholders go, do you know what? Can we have some money, please? Can we make some bloody money, please? I don't see this changing.
That time is coming though, right? So that if you look at any demographic which is most susceptible to that kind of creative destruction, that sense of nihilism, the term woke is used, I think, too much, but just a shorthand. The people most likely to fall for that kind of thing or to espouse that kind of thing are incredibly affluent, and they've benefited from a long period of very easy money. And these are the people that studios now employ in the decision-making departments, and that's why films now don't really have entertainment as their core purpose. It is messaging first, because money hasn't really been too much of a consideration in the last decade, really, for film studios. I mean, it's been such a great time for stocks in the last decade, generally speaking. That is coming to an end, though, and that will come to an end in quite a nasty way, which is why you're seeing so many layoffs in big media companies. They all thought it would be restricted to big tech, but, you know, the Washington Post is laying off an entire generation of reporters who were brought in, who espouse exactly that kind of mindset, which I'm a former journalist, but I don't cry at all to see them being given the marching orders. The problem is going to be, though, when we get into these very straitened times which are coming, when studios do have no choice but to revert to the bottom line, what properties are they going to have left which are guaranteed cash spinners? Because if you've already wrecked Star Wars, and if you've already wrecked Indiana Jones, and if you've already wrecked The Lord of the Rings, and if you've already wrecked we're now down to the level of Willow, what have they got left to actually guarantee the money coming in anymore? And there's going to be some very, very difficult decisions for studios to make going forward. And in some cases, especially where they've really shelled out, as Disney's done, on acquiring other smaller studios with the promise of big returns in future, they've burned through a lot of the potential capital that they had there. So it will be very interesting to see the kind of projects they prioritize over the next decade when they don't have money they can just spunk up a wall, basically.
I'd be curious if they come for Foscape at some point. I wonder.
I mean, that's. I mean, well, I was going to say that's pretty obscure, but then they went for Willow, didn't they? So
yeah. I don't know.
Anything could. They could reboot Stargate SG-1, I suppose. Like, you know.
Oh, they are apparently.
Have they done Buffy yet?
They were gonna, but then they stopped. But I imagine there's a timer on that one.
They're going to get Back to the Future. I guarantee it. Eventually, they'll get their hands on it. Yeah, there's a good point here made as well, because this is an argument that comes up quite a bit. It's that Mangold made Logan and Ford versus Ferrari, though. That is true, but then being a good director doesn't guarantee you're going to make great movies. Like, you're kind of dependent on the script that you're given, or that you're able to produce. Like, it doesn't matter how talented you are as a director, you might still produce a shit film at the end of it.
I think the straightforward, easy one is just the same man who made Alien Covenant. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
granted,
God.
it was many years later, but still.